But you might say, river, air pollution, the reasons
There was one question you came back. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ceci Communication, and I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight. I know it's very difficult to go to community meetings, but I thank you all for coming. Legion Valley, Cypress Park, LaSalle, Echo, Silver Lake, Lincoln Heights, there's many of you here tonight, and I appreciate it. Thank you for your time here. I also would like to thank Gil Seville's office, Arturo Chavez, Orlando Pedaza, for really helping us form this group and really providing us the necessary meetings for MetroLink community. They've been a great help to us, a great friend to our community. At this time, I'd like to introduce our guests here from MetroLink, and I'd like to the board of directors, which are Dennis Marzak, Richard Cass, Jennifer Cohen, and Patricia Bruno. I'd also like to welcome EQMD, Sherry Schneider, Henry Hobo, Mark Carroll, and Gil Charlotte. Thank you for coming. I believe we're going to start a video right now.
particular matter was being released into the air. And I'm going to pan over and see how close this is to what's going on at the same time. Smoke is coming directly over here. Just start it up again. Jump down my bed and got my camera ready so I can record this. So it's already been going on for several minutes.
Interim CEO, which is our CEO, Chief Operating Officer. And then two guys that actually oversee CMM. Let's talk about I see we don't grow.
This film is why we're here today. We're here because our community's health and our children's future should not be the price for getting more cars off the road and people into public transportation. We're here tonight because one person would not give up his quest to clean up the toxic air pollution on our community by the MetroLink maintenance yard facility in Taylor Yard. 10 years ago, the Mission Valley neighbor, Kim Din, started making phone calls and complaining to the APMD, and anyone who would listen. 2 years ago, Grove Poshway joined his neighbor, tweeting, taking photos of videos, and attending MetroLink board meetings in Legion Valley, Cypress Park, the South Park Neighbor Council, meetings to get the word out in the community that we should not sit idly by allowing a major polluter to put our lives at risk. I got involved around a year and a half ago, and I'll give you a really good example why I got involved. This is just an entity that keeps me in this group that is very persistent and requires us to do a lot of work as community people. We had a fair, an exercise fair at Doris Place where our kids were exercising. It was a warm day. I would say it was around 10 o'clock. And I remember 3 or 4 of the kids not able to complete a relay because of coughing, asthmatic type breathing. And I just thought, these are young children. And I just heard the MetroLink in the back with the engine still ready, as our kids are not able to participate in the everyday activities that kids can do. I also continue to pursue this group because as community people, I know what it's like when someone you love has their breath taken away from them. Don't let this come to your door. And if it does, please join us. Trillion and Grove's persistence paid off. Assembly, Cedillo staff, Arturo Chavez and Conrado Pedazos facilitated meetings with MetroLink officials. A small group of us toured the MetroLink facility to better understand the operations. Last October, we held a meeting with over 100 community members who asked really good questions and even offered creative solutions to the MetroLink representatives. In addition to the community representatives from all our elected officials, attended included Congressman Adam Schiff, Congressman Xavier Becerra, Supervisor Gloria Molina, Mayor Antonio Villarosa, Councilmember Eric Garcetti, Councilmember Ed Reyes, LUSD Board Ben Kaiser. At the meeting, MetroLink officials promised to return with answers to the community questions. By January, the coalition leadership, including members from Polar, Cypress, LaSalle Park, Silver Lake. In January, we had another community leaders roundtable discussion with the Air Quality Management District of Unity to find out what, if anything, we could do about the toxic emissions from the rail yard. We made a lot of friends that night, particularly with Eastside Rail Yard communities, Angela Logan, Karen Flores from Country Valley River, Mark Kenny and Northeast Trees, Bill Piazza from LUSD Environmental Health and Safety, GPIA, Elisa Smith, Diane Edison from Silver Lake, Art Lab, Sotomayor High School, Anahuac, Raul Macias, Doris Place, Suzanne Smith, just to name a few of the people who have supported us and joined this group. Later in January, we had a community meeting here with more than 150 neighbors attending at the River Center, where then MetroLink CEO John Fenton made promises to our community. We're here to hold MetroLink responsible for their promises. We are a community of working families whose priorities are keeping a roof over our heads, making sure our kids stay out of trouble and in school. We should not have to worry that the air we breathe is killing us. So, for anyone who says, what can one person do? How can I make a difference? Here's a person whose persistence was responsible for keeping the goal of clean air alive and moving forward. And that person is my neighbor and my friend, Trillion Kidd.
Thank you, Julia. Good evening, everyone. We would not have gotten this far without your leadership and organizing. And MetroLink might still have been operating each train 24/7 in the essential maintenance facility. Briefly, I would like to talk about the health effect of living next to a rail yard. There are days when I see and smell the diesel exhaust coming from the MetroLink locomotive engines. I cannot let my children outside to play because of the health risk. State of California Air Resources Board has classified diesel exhaust as a cancer causing in 1998. Since then, a significant amount of research has confirmed the health risk of living next to a rail yard and inhale diesel exhaust. This is no shortage of studies confirming the risk, including cancer, heart disease, asthma, chronic bronchitis, persistent cough, premature death, premature birth, and low birth weight to name a few. The state of California Air Resources Board study also indicated that 70%, remember this, 70% of the cancer risk from airborne pollutant is from diesel exhaust, which is a significantly higher than other toxic air contaminants. So 70%. MetroLink service yard is only a few hundred feet from home. Cypress Park Recreation Center, Erie River by 12, and there are 9 schools nearby, including Shannon Park, Doris Place, Albion Streets, Aragon, Loretto, Grasso Park, Florence Nightingale, Levi Saver, and Los Angeles Charter School for the Art. These are not made for school. These are our children. Living next to the rail maintenance yard increases your risk of all the above ailments, more than living next to a freeway. Car and trucks are regulated for pollution control. MetroLink trains are not. According to the World Health Organization, diesel exhaust is really dangerous because it contains carcinogens, the substance that cause cancer. Because diesel exhaust contains microscopic particulate matter, PM10 and PM2.5, which are so small, you cannot see it or smell it. It is so dangerous because when you breathe, it gets deep into your lung and cause permanent damage, leading to greater susceptibility to heart and respiratory illness, allergy, and cancer. What you cannot see can kill you. There are studies show non-smokers who live next to a source of diesel emissions, like a railroad or freeway, die with black lung similar to a smoker's lung. Health risks to children are particularly high since their lungs are still developing. The elderly and those with chronic heart and lung problems are at greater risk of premature death. This is a public health issue. Many in our community have no health insurance and rely on county health service for even the most basic health care. This comes to show the need to address the dangerous diesel emission, the diesel exhaust emission at MetroLink Central Maintenance Facility in order to protect our community. With that in mind, I would like to introduce my neighbor, Rose Presley, whose passion and commitment helped us get here tonight.
All right, thank you, Glenn. Swan's my good neighbor, and for 2 years ago, he educated me about the pollution issues we both faced living in Leeson Valley near the MetroLink Central Maintenance Facility. I came on board 2 years ago to do something, anything, to bring about change. The risks were just too great to do nothing. So I'm not here tonight because I want to be. I'm here because it's essential that I'm here. My health, my wife's health, as well as my neighbors are all at risk living near the facility. We are here again tonight not to ask MetroLink to clean up its act. We are here to demand it. It's our right to do so because we're the ones living with the various health risks created by the facility. Just because it's always been a railroad, there's no excuse for allowing MetroLink to continue poisoning our community. And to their credit, and because of the community's demanding action since this last October, MetroLink has begun cleaning up their act. So it's time to figure out how to make a real difference in a meaningful way to make our community a much safer place. I'd like to address the commitments MetroLink's previous CEO, John Fenton, made at our last meeting and addressed a number of asks that we believe could make a difference. Before I do, I'd like to thank MetroLink for coming to this tonight with the open dialogue, and to thank you for the number of short-term improvements made at this point by MetroLink. Myself and many of my neighbors have noticed and commented that the locomotives from 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the morning is no longer revving its engine like it used to on most nights. Many of us in the community sleep better because of this. So thank you. Also, I'm happy to say that the weekend traffic on the facility has improved recently. It's not perfect. We still have several engines entering the facility performing load tests, but it's not as bad as it was. Again, neighbors had commented that they had noticed the difference. So thank you. Let's just keep it that way. The morning locomotives servicing from 7 a.m. to about 9:30 a.m. seem to be doing better as well. They run their HEP engines, but it's at a lower RPM, from what we can tell. So thank you. And also, it's been noticed that locomotives have fewer bells and lower volumes, and that's been very helpful too. So thank you. In January, former MetroLink's CEO John Fenton made a number of commitments to our community after learning how upset the folks are living in and around this central maintenance facility. One long-term commitment made was to replace or to upgrade 30 to 52 engines with a cleaner burning Tier 4 locomotive by the end of 2014. This is great for long-term outlook. However, it does very little for us in the meantime. We know there are other measures you can make much sooner. So we're going to go to slide number 1. Is that there?
So those folks that are sitting in the back, just please come back closer. Secondly, alguien que necesita traducción. If anybody needs translation, alguien necesita traducción, we have translation equipment in the back.
Continue. So ask number 1. Since October, the community has consistently asked for an immediate health risk assessment for the nearby communities of Cypress Park and Legion Valley, with special attention to 9 nearby schools and all the area recreational facilities. We last requested for a focused source receptor health risk assessment in a conference call with interim CEO Dennis Marzak this last Monday. We want a health risk assessment for reasons of the health of our community that Twin talked about, and for the community to radically evaluate and measure that MetroLink will be spending tens of thousands, millions of dollars on it. It would seem to make good sense to have a baseline to compare their cleanup strategies. This is an issue that we'll address further on later tonight. Ask number 2. Immediate reduction in service hours with no overflow traffic. Overflow traffic is basically traffic that comes in after 6 o'clock. It's a different shift. There's only a few trains. Overflow traffic. Limit servicing hours from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., Monday through Friday, and no weekend service. Any overflow traffic into the facility must be serviced at an alternative facility, such as the Eastern Maintenance Facility. Ask number 3, stronger enforcement of safety regulations for noisy, heavy exhaust periods, including reducing the idling time of an engine service for no more than 20 minutes per day. Purchase and use non-polluting push carts for moving trains around the yard. To date, it is rare that we see these push carts being used. Ask number 4, Fenton promised that they would plug the engines into an external power source so they would not be running their HEP engines while they're being serviced. 7 months later, we're still waiting with no explanation to why the delays. We requested multiple electrical outlets to be installed throughout the yard to provide power to passenger cars while they are being serviced to reduce the running times of the engines. If there are 30 locomotives in the facility at one time, then there should be 30 outlets to service those 30 locomotives. Turning the ATP engines in the facility at all times, turning off the engines in the facility at all times, within reason. It's utmost important to us. We are convinced that the ATP engines, its sole purpose, which is to generate electricity and air conditioning, heating, and cleaning, is the biggest polluter and makes the most frequent noise in the facility. Can't emphasize that enough. These engines should not be used at all in the facility once the electrical cables are installed. Prior to the electrical cables being installed, ATP engines should only be used for cleaning times and in short-term durations of maintaining ATP engine that may be required by your regulations, if there are any. I know further reductions in running these engines will help clean the air with less noise. So the ATP engines are the ones that we really like to concentrate on, other than the hood technology. Ask number 5, installation of exhaust and noise capture hood devices where engines are load tested, heavy revving, and for engines that are idling during daily general maintenance. When the revving goes on, it's very loud, it's a lot of pollution, and they only go on for 15 minutes, but you got a number of trips every day. While not an air quality issue, but a quality of life issue, implementing a quiet zone for horns and bells and work with the community to consider sound barriers in various locations. I don't think sound areas need to go through the whole facility, but I think there are some selected areas where most noise is done. That's where the main maintenance is done, the main maintenance. Ask number 7, I want to reiterate, we want you to conduct an immediate health risk assessment for the nearby communities of Cypress Park and Leeson Valley, with special attention to 9 nearby schools and all area recreational facilities and associated risk reduction strategy. My time is nearly over, but I'd like to address commitment number 1 from January 25th, our January 25th meeting. Commitment number 1 is about locomotives turning off ATP engines after leaving the Union Station to enter the Central Memphis facility and to turn off the power after inspections. Commitment number 1 also says disciplinary action if this is not enforced. Commitment number 1 is very important to us. I'm sorry to inform you, but we know this is not being enforced or monitored. We know the sound of these engines. We've studied it. We monitor the facility every day. The engineers seem not to take this very seriously, or it's not being reiterated. It's important like this should be done. We are asking to make sure you reiterate to the engineers to turn off ATP powered engines and enter the facility and after servicing, especially the overflow traffic engineers. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to the community coalition here that's been working on this for years. It's not easy for community folks to step up and become strong advocates and activists. And Grow, Ian, Ceci, Lisa, all these folks that are up here have been working on this bill. Of course, Alexia, have been working on this for quite some time, and we've been able to come up, and now we know all about things that no one else would know about, right? ATP Indians, these particulate matter, load tests, electrical outlets. My God, these guys are, have had to study all this in order to address it in MetroLink. This is our 4th meeting. We have a meeting in October, we have a meeting in January, this is our 3rd meeting, January, and now that. They have, as Grove indicated, MetroLink has addressed some of the issues. But there's still some more to be done. And we have been gathered here today again as a result of commitments that they made in January that they'd come back in 6 months. They would address the issues and the commitments that they made. That is what you have in your handouts. We will have a question and answer period later. There are question cards here. There is also a Spanish translation. I'll say it again. There's some translation back here. We are honored to have MetroLink's interim CEO here. That's Marcek, who's been here when the CEO was here at the first meeting, so there's some consistency. So we have to do that. We do have to give credit where credit's due. We have AQMB, who's been here since all the meetings, who's from Shara over there in the corner, to Finley here in Ogle, and also at Jericho Park. Today we have the chairman of board of MetroLink, Richard Katz, who's also come in today. So we're going to now go on with our agenda. I advise you that if you want to have a question, please fill this out. We will have some questions to ask here later, but we want to get through what we have asked for them to do in January. Okay? So now we'll turn it over to MetroLink. Mr. Martin. Oh, Mr. Katz.
Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah. All right. First, my name is Richard Katz. I chair the MetroLink board. I'm an appointee of Mayor Villaraigosa to the MTA board, and the MTA is one of the 5 counties that are members of the MetroLink board. And okay, sorry. For those who didn't hear before, my name is Richard Katz. I chair the MetroLink board. I'm an appointee of Mayor Villaraigosa to the MTA board, which is one of the member agencies to MetroLink, which is how I chair the MetroLink board. They're all interconnected. MetroLink board consists of representatives from 5 counties: LA, Ventura, San Bernardino, Riverside, and Orange. That's the service area for MetroLink. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank Assemblyman Cedillo's office for facilitating and being participant. I want to thank all the members of the community. I want to thank Grove for the acknowledgement of what progress we have made. I appreciate that, and we appreciate noticing because we're trying. And I understand also the concern. I've got a 5-year-old boy myself, and I'm happy to say that the LA he's growing up in is a much better place to live than the LA I grew up in. Because I remember the days when you couldn't see the mountains and you couldn't go out and play, and your chest hurt from the smog, and you literally couldn't go outside. We've come a long way, but we're still trying to do better. I'm going to ask Dennis Marzak in a minute, who is our Director of Operations, to go through some slides and talk about some of the things you saw, because we want you to understand what we're trying to do as well. And I've got to tell you, we take this issue very seriously. We take your concerns very seriously. Even before you had approached us, even though I know you were doing a lot of work and people have been working on this for several years, we've been investigating how to run a better operation as part of what we do. I mean, we do that day in and day out. We had already started down the road of looking at newer engines and what's available, what's on the market, and how you pay for it. Because that's always an issue in things like this. Locomotives, for instance, are not cheap. Locomotives are about $7 million a piece. We have 52 locomotives. To replace them all at $7 million a piece is a couple bucks. But we acknowledge that we've got to move forward. Dennis and his crew, who do a very good job, and I think one of the things I wanted to emphasize, because it's the balance we've got to strike here. I understand, as I said, I've heard, and I understand and appreciate the concerns. We have to, in some ways, though, we have to achieve a balance. For instance, we don't want to ring those bells any more than we have to, or the horns, which is why we have drastically reduced how they're used on the yard today. But you have to keep in mind, this is an operating railroad facility. There are trains that come in, trains that go out, because that's what we do there. And we've been doing it there since 1992. UP, I think, did it before the Taylor Yard, so it's been happening for a long time. Also important to note that in the same area, there are, I have that number, I don't remember numbers as well as I used to. In addition to what we run through the area, there are 12 trains owned by Union Pacific that run through the yard that we have no control over whatsoever. We have no control over the engines, we have no control over how they operate or what they put out into the air. In addition to that, there are 12 Amtrak trains that come through that yard not for the maintenance or the testing, but they use the track through the yard. So you've got 24 trains coming through there that we have no control over whatsoever. Those are issues that those owners have to keep up with. And lastly, I also want to point out, as we try to figure out how to solve this problem, today, in an average day, between the 5 and the 110, 510,000 vehicles pass through this area. Of those 510,000 vehicles, some 26,000 of them are trucks. So there are multiple sources that we all have to be able to deal with. And that's not an excuse to say we're not going to take care of ours. It's just my way of saying there's a lot of sources here. It's not all coming from a place. It's never that simple that there's just a cloud coming from one place, let's go fix that. But what you will find, and I'll ask Dennis to go through the presentation, we have stopped idling our trains. I wish we could say that we did it for air quality purposes, because we knew it was a bad practice, but I'll be honest with you. John Fenton, who you guys have met, and who has moved back to Florida to be closer to his family and work with a different company. When he first came to MetroLink, he walked out at the CMF and asked somebody why the locomotives are idling. And they essentially were, he was told, because they've always idled. You see that with buses too. I have that same question. Why are they running all day? Well, what's our shutdown policy? And whoever we talked to said, well, we really don't have one because it's the old way we've always done it. So John said, well, starting today, we're not doing it that way anymore. You're shutting them down unless they're being tested. The result of that, in addition to less junk in the air, from an operational standpoint, we save 800,000 gallons of fuel at $3.50 or $3.75, depending on what time of the day it is, per gallon. That's a lot of money, too. So that was something, it wasn't done, unfortunately, we hadn't realized it wasn't driven by the air quality impact, but the air quality gets better as a result of that decision, just from somebody putting fresh eyes on the situation. We are continuing to do that. We are putting electrical outlets in as soon as we can and where we can. We're working at going more electric, putting more in the ground and dealing more with electric and less with diesel. We're even looking at, I've got a meeting next week with a manufacturer who's trying to build railroad locomotives and use natural gas to power, which is even farther out there than the Tier 4 in terms of how clean they get. People don't know if that'll work, but we are constantly looking for ways to be a better neighbor because it's the right thing to do. And because, listen, those are our crews there too. So the same concerns you have, we have for our crews and the people who work at the facility. I'm going to stick around for the meeting. I will be here till the end to answer questions that I can answer. I'm asking Dennis to make the presentation, but I wanted to be here tonight just so you know how that we take this very seriously. This is not something that we're trying to dodge or walk away from because we intend to be here a while. We've been here a while already. I know you intend to be here a while, and we want you and your children to be able to coexist with us in a place that makes you happy to raise your kids. So that's what we're going to work on. My commitment as chair is to work on that and to meet and to talk and to try and get solutions to these problems and to push the edge of the envelope as far as we can do that. Dennis is going to find some ways for doing that, and as I said, I'll be happy to answer questions, but thank you very much for giving me a few minutes to talk. I appreciate the opportunity, Arturo, thank you, and I will turn it over to Dennis.
I also want to thank the community for inviting us here today. I think that I appreciate you pointing out small and maybe one of the leaps that we believe on our side we made. I appreciate you pointing out, acknowledging that we have a job to try and make the community, make a difference with the community, and appreciate you seeing it for us. So I'll go through the presentation. As Celia said earlier, that we have participated. If we didn't care, we wouldn't do it. It'd be a lot easier for us to just say, hey, we feel like we're in compliance and we're not going to attend. But we realize that you have a concern. And we have tried to make a difference. And we're going to continue to try to make a difference. Through attendance, we continue to be open dialogue. As we said earlier, on Monday we had a conference about the issue. We're going to continue to do it. Just as an overall map, as you've probably seen before, where the CMF is located within the center of our area. And it's that we can reach all legs of our area. And one of the things that was talked about earlier was that bypassing CMF. Well, today we already do that. At night, that's why there aren't any sets in here. That's why there aren't any sets in here at night, because we're servicing an outlying point. Lancaster, Ventura, North Park, Riverside, San Bernardino, Oceanside. Emergency goes on those facilities throughout the night also. Our operations, as you mentioned earlier, over 40,000 trips a day, 55 stations, 512 miles. And we are heavily regulated by OSHA, Cal OSHA, FRA, AQMD, so we do have regulatory agencies looking at us all. As mentioned earlier, as Richard pointed out, we're located between I-5 and 110 in San Fernando, and Richard gave the stats out there. We have 32 locomotives coming in here every day. There's 5,000 vehicles that we're surrounded by going across our highway. So we've got 33 locomotives coming through the facility on a daily basis. It takes 45 minutes to 60 minutes to service on the inbound. We take them to the other side for the most part, and we bed them down. Our tested, equipment is tested and inspected over there. We'll talk a little bit about, there was a concern that we haven't been putting equipment on electrical cables and all. We've made an investment in that. We've got 25% of the fleet on a daily basis. We started that process in April. 25% of the trains that do come out of the 33 get hooked up to electrical power. Fuel conservation, turning off head-end power, and I have to take your word for it. You say that some are left running, and that's an oversight issue. Rules are rules, and we got human beings that may forget at times. But they're required to turn them down at CNF, at Union Station, and we're supposed to inspect it. So if there is an issue, we'll redouble our efforts to make sure that power shut off when it comes in. Yeah, there's a progressive discipline. Amtrak, crews work for Amtrak. Obviously, they leave it on one time, we're not going to fire, but we certainly do have a progressive discipline program.
Yeah, it's essentially bad habits or no habits.
Certainly. These people have never shut them down. And you've been operating a locomotive for 20 years, it's a case you got to get down, shut the locomotive down, wait for the timeout, and then turn the breaker. So, but it is something that should be done. And it's something that we can police, and we talk about it in the morning. We take spot checks and percentages. So we'll redouble our efforts on it. We talked about the noise and blowing the horns. We had a grade crossing right out here. It was a private grade crossing. Because it wasn't regulated, there's no lights and bells and whistles, there's no public that go across there, we were able to stop blowing the horns. We put out an order so the UP, the Amtrak, and us to no longer blow the horns over that crossing unless there's an emergency or there's someone present. Anytime there's anytime there's people present, there's someone along the right of way, we do that as a warning, and I think you would respect that. Sound canceling measures. Well, we've looked at the trees. We've had people come out and take a look at that area. We've also recently talked to a group that they have availability for perhaps a sound barrier that actually can produce electricity. These are expensive items. But we're talking to them, we're looking at them, and we're going to get an estimate of what that does. I can't make any promises to that because we've got a board to go to, we've got to find the resources. But, nature, trees, vegetation, that'd be a great thing to have out there. So we are working with the community and we are working with the legislature to get that done. I have a team of compliance officers that go around the system and test. They test for signals, they test for speed, they test for a lot of things. This is one of the things that they do test on. When we go out to locations, we want to make certain that the equipment is shut down when it's supposed to. We installed AESS systems, which are automatic stop systems, on 32 of our locomotives to prevent that. So I think we're getting good compliance with it. My crews tested, and my compliance crews tested. So I feel comfortable that we responded well to this, but again, it's a compliance issue where we have to continue to talk and watch and look at our crews and make sure that they're compliant with our policy. As Richard mentioned earlier, we've got a fuel conservation program, saved over 860,000 gallons, and that continues today. We'll talk a little bit here about the Tier 4 locomotive. I can go about it now. Okay. Our staff has gone through a long process of creating a scope to purchase Tier 4 locomotives. We went through our board to get at least approval for evaluation criteria. Our board has to approve it, which they did. How we're proceeding with that is now it's in the procurement process, where it goes to the bidding world and people look at the cost of the locomotive, how they can come in. We've got two options out there. One is to rehabilitate the locomotives into Tier 4 from Tier 0. That would be about 30 locomotives. The other would be to buy new Tier 4 locomotives, about 20 of those. Either one of those is an expensive proposition. To rehabilitate 30 of those locomotives, we're in about the $120 million range. That's take the existing Tier 0, turn them into Tier 4. To buy 20 to 21 locomotives, we're in the $140 million range. So obviously, MetroLink doesn't have that money internally. It takes a partnership to do that. Governor Brown has signed the bond in there, so we're looking at getting money from Prop 1B. We're working with our partners at AQMD to hope to be able to work out some financing arrangements with them. But at the end of the day, it's $140 million. We're working with all our agencies to look at the rehabilitation funds that for years to come. So it's $140 million or $120 million, whichever way we go to invest. But again, we put the procurement out. That should happen sometime later by the end of this year. We should have that in. Then once we do that, we go to our board to seek approval, and then we continue on to secure the resources. In any event, the bonds won't be sold, I understand, until the spring of next year. Probably not.
I'm sorry. It's okay, I just wanted to interrupt and knock Dennis's name off the table. But, yeah, don't take it personally, and it's not a sign. So, thank you. The one thing I want to say is in terms of the decisions we need to make and would love to get you guys involved in, because also we want to be transparent about our process as well. So there are no mysteries to you. So, whenever there are mysteries, people naturally go towards conspiracy theories or bad stuff. And so we want to get away from that and walk through as much as, but when I was talking earlier about the trade-offs we got to figure out how to do, for instance, we want to limit the noise. We want to limit the signals. We want to limit the bells. But we also have to be safe at the railroad. I mean, those are big things and they hurt people if they're not paying attention. So we need to balance between respect for the neighborhood, but also making safety, which is our number one concern no matter what we're involved in. On this, and the reason I interrupted Dennis for a second is I know that we're going to talk about hood technology and we're going to talk about Tier 4. Hood technology was 38? No? 30. To do the whole place in hood technology is about $30 million. If we do Tier 4 locomotives, we're taking most of the stuff out of there already that the hood's captured. So you don't want to spend $30 million here and then spend $140 million on the locomotives because they do a lot of the same stuff. Now, I'll ask AQMD to talk more about that, but that's what I think we'd like to have a dialogue about. We're committed to new engines and to new locomotives. How we do it is what we need to talk about.
Well, I want to say thank you, and I said about the time restriction.
Okay, I'll let Dennis finish.
So,
I'll be quiet.
okay, well,
Okay, so just to recap, we implemented fuel conservation, reduced HED idling time, initiated policy, both commuter freight trains along both corners out here, and we continue to work with the municipality on that for lengthening that crossing quiet zone. We streamlined maintenance practice, reduce idling time, taking from one end of the yard, getting it to the other quickly, reduced our bell ring, initiated a pilot plumbing program, as I mentioned earlier. Provided technical expertise and support to the establishment of quiet zones, and established a sustainability webpage for better communication and everything. That's what we've done to today. Now, what are we looking at tomorrow? Well, the emissions car test movement. We've got budget approval for the rehabilitate, to buy private car removal, we're putting that out for procurement. Those funds come in January, so it'll be electric car removal, no longer be an emissions type car removal. We have expansion of the electrical plug station. We had our vent services, our electrical services, do a study of the entire yard. We're going to look at getting the funds to electrify, putting the plug technology across the entire yard, which would mean we have availability. Today we've only got it on one end of the yard where the trains come in at. So we're going to expand it throughout the yard. We get the resources to do this and get board approval. It's between $1.25 and $1.5 million to get it done. But technology, as Richard mentioned, it's a good technology. I went out, we took the staff and we went out to Long Beach and took a look at the new technology. It was installed at another location. They've made advances on that down at Long Beach now, so it doesn't have all the filters on it. But they came out, they gave us a presentation also. They went to our facility. They did some looking around, measuring, gave us a ballpark figure of putting hoods on the low test area, on the service facility, on both sides of the S&I track. It's going to be about $30 million to get that installed. Tier 4 locomotive purchase, I talked about that. But again, we're in the process phase, we're in the procurement phase. But again, we've got to make certain that we've got the resources to do this and board approval. All this takes board approval. Now, I'm not saying our board is not going to get us approval, but we've got to go, we've got to prove it, we've got to have the resources to do this. Exploring natural sound reductions, as I talked about, but there's also the possibility of what I saw on the barrier, the fencing barrier with the solar panels in it. Good possibility, but again, it's expensive proposition. Again, I want to say that we're committed to getting better. These are some of the tools that we can use to get better, and we're going to work to get the resources to do that. And keep our relations going.
Well, thank you so much. And since we have many people here and we want to simplify things, and I thought what a better way than to ask these questions, and maybe you could answer in yes or no, and I'll start.
Wait, just before we do that. We put both the panels up here today, so we have questions answered from the general public that's coming in, but we also have folks that have been working on this for a while. They have a couple of questions. So, Leanne?
I'm Diane Edwards, and I live in Silver Lake. I overlook Elysian Valley and the central maintenance yard. So I can say that yes, there has been some improvement in the last 6 months. I don't see the haze at dawn that I used to see hanging over the yard. However, it's what you can't see that can kill you. And I have a question for Mr. Marzak. You had some numbers about the $120 million for 20 Tier 2 retrofits, or upgrading to Tier 4, 30 engines, which would cost $117 million to $140 million. But it would seem that in order to know what cleans the air better, whether it's the hood technology or the Tier 4 engines, we would need a health risk assessment to know what cleans the air better.
Well, the thing about it, we invest in the locomotives. So, and again, it was 30 rehabilitated locomotives, our existing Tier 0 locomotives to a Tier 4. That's in the area of $120 million. Buying 21 new locomotives is about $140 million. Tier 4, okay? Now, the thing about that is that helps the system. If I put the hoods here at CMF, it helps CMF. But if I invest the money in the technology, it helps the entire basin. Because these engines don't stay here all day, they go to San Bernardino and go Paris Swan. So.
The other thing you need to consider about the Tier 4, Tier 4, it's more than just a newer engine. If Tier 4 takes 80%, 90% of all the NOx and particulate matter out of the engine. It's from what it is today, from Tier 0 to Tier 4, you take 90% out. And then if you put a hood on top of it, you take out 90% of the 10% that's left. So, I'll let AQB talk about it. But what I wanted to mention, you consider the reason we're looking at Tier 4, why Dennis is talking about the system. Tier 4 locomotives also are more fuel efficient, which is good from an air quality and a cost standpoint. Tier 4 locomotives are also have more horsepower, so we can pull an extra 450 people or 3 cars without increasing our costs. We can take more cars off the road. So when you look at Tier 4, and this is a discussion we're going to have with the board, the difference between rehab and going to Tier 4 is you do a lot more things with the Tier 4 than improve everything overall. Where I disagree with you in terms of the health assessment relative to the locomotive, AQMD, and I'll turn it over to them, can talk about what they know comes out of the engine and what's achieved by using a Tier 4 locomotive and taking 90% of that junk out of the air. So you know you're doing that. That's what you're buying with the Tier 4 locomotive.
No, the question was, in order for us to evaluate and for, it would seem for MetroLink to evaluate which methods are working best or will work best, because you're taking cars off the road, but you're giving us all the exhaust from the locomotives that you're servicing, and the idling in the engines and the load tests and whatnot. We bear the brunt of taking cars off the road in our neighborhood. Not just because of you. Yes, there are freeways, but there are ways to do a health risk assessment to just measure what comes out of your facility and what has come out of your best facility in the past. And I think Bill could elaborate on this, on the health risk assessment better than I can.
I'll just interrupt for just a minute. We have time factors at the homes because we're visitors here, and so we have to be able to get through this. So question, she's going to be a timer there. She's going to put the time for you to answer within that period of time, please.
Before Bill comments, and Bill, we know Bill many years, and we both did modeling in the past. So, but I want to comment that we know what the emission levels are from the locomotives in terms of their emission rates. And to do a health risk assessment, you're essentially using those emission rates to do the calculation. We also know that under load tests what the emissions level could be, because we have many studies, as was mentioned earlier. ARB has done a lot of testing at different rail yards. So at Commerce, where they do load testing, we do know what the emission factors are. We know what the emission levels of Tier 0 locomotives are. My point is that we know that if you clean up the engines, you're going to see a benefit throughout the basin. You put in the hood technology, it will capture the remaining emissions at the facility. Now, it won't capture all the emissions because, as you can see from the videos, you have locomotives queued up, waiting to go into the facility. And if they're idling at the same time, then you're not capturing with the hood at that point. You only capture it when it goes into the facility. So our recommendation is to clean up the engines as quickly as possible. Look at the hood technology, see where the hood technology can be most effective. And it could be focused primarily at the loads testing site itself. So we want to have a discussion with MetroLink about the cost of the technology and where they could be installed. We've been out at the facility to look at where it could be installed effectively. And we are actually the sponsor of the hood technology at the Port of Long Beach. So we have a vested interest in this technology. We do know where things should go. Doing a health risk assessment may be important to understand the different types of sources contribution to the community. So for instance, you mentioned 9 schools in doing this assessment. Not all of these schools are affected by the facility at the same level. And we've been to Doris Place Elementary School at the request of the principal, and we noticed that they're right next to the 5 freeway. So most likely they're more impacted by the cars and trucks that operate in the freeway than they are relatively speaking, compared to the emissions from the facility. Intuitively, we have a pretty good idea. So our belief is the actions to clean up is much more important at this point in time.
Well, with all due respect, you certainly can't argue with the fact that you're implementing emission reduction measures and we use emission factors, and absolutely, that's the tools that we use. We know we will have emission reductions, but we're not also talking about the source strength of the reduction at the source, but ultimately there's an effect on the community, there's a risk. And the carcinogenic risk is X. I don't know what that is, maybe you all do. Do you know what the cancer risk is right now from their facility in terms of their downward extent? Would you know that, Henry?
We probably can estimate that based on all the ARB studies of rail yards in terms of number of locomotives and load testing. So when we looked at the Commerce rail yard, which is similar in size and capacity, the number of locomotives that go through the Commerce rail yard, we can have a comparative look at what it would be like here at the facility.
I was unaware that the Air District is now modifying its approach to its command and control. I know when we permit a gas station, you don't rely on the other gas station that had a permit and evaluation. You require that gas station to go through the permit process and prepare a health risk assessment. So are you saying maybe the Southwest Air Quality Management District is revising its approach to looking at source receptacles?
I'm not saying that.
Oh, it's sounded
I'm just saying that at this point in time, it's much more important to get these actions in place.
What the community wants, and it's not just a school-endorsed place, but there's a number of residents that are extremely near field. So we want to look at not only just the schools, I'm sure that's near and dear to my heart, but we also have the community who's very, very near field and across the street. And so we hear of all these wonderful things that they are planning to do, and that's great, and they all will have a net benefit. We want to know what that net benefit is, and we want to see it over time based on the scenarios that we develop. How many years, how long, what the risk is going to be as a result or until implementation of them. So you can't tell me that intuitively, yes, it looks good, but we want to see a quantifiable measure. And the only way to quantifiably measure the effectiveness of the mitigation and the ultimate reduction in risk is through risk assessment. That's the best tool in the toolbox, and looking at the various operational scenarios you are proposing. And that is what the community is asking for, plain and simple.
I feel if I still have some time, I want to mention, at our last meeting, we mentioned that the HMD is embarking on a next round of air monitoring relative to toxics. It's called our MATES program, Multiple Air Toxic Exposure Study. We just started that program on July 2nd. We're measuring at various locations air toxics pollutants. This is the most intensive measurement program that we have in place. And it's probably one of the most intensive programs throughout the nation that we have this. And this is actually going to be our fourth study. It's a year-long monitoring program, and then ultimately we will take that data along with the inventories that we have, including the emission rates from locomotives, and model that. When we do this type of monitoring, we can actually calculate what the risk would be throughout the region. And we actually can compare how our models do relative to monitoring data. And this is the way we would want to take this approach. Just to simply do a health risk assessment without monitoring data, you're using essentially emission factors and estimating what the relative impacts would be for various sources. We're doing that, but we're also doing the comparison with actual monitoring data. And we will be completing this work sometime late next year. So in a sense, we are looking at what the risk levels would be throughout the region. We can break it down by source category. And one thought is that part of this work would be to come out to various locations on a temporary basis to take more focused monitoring. And we have done that in the past at the railroad.
I was unaware that the South Coast Air Quality Management District developed a method that will identify DPM in the ambient air. Is there something that I missed, or are we just simply using the sewer at this time?
No, the last makes three, maybe this is an offline discussion with Bill directly, but at our last makes three, we developed a methodology that can identify the particulate, diesel particulate portion of fuel.
And you'll provide that. That's really interesting. As ARBs hit with this too, right?
They're part of, yeah, this is part of the makes three report.
And I just like to ask you, Mr. Manager, our kids do go home after school. So although you're talking about the school, our kids play at Cypress Park along the river, so we can't forget that. So when you mentioned the school and the freeway, let's not forget.
I didn't mention that.
Okay.
I didn't want to be remiss in not
Don't
mentioning
miss
the
that
other
because they
schools,
do go home from
I just
school.
want to point out that depending on location, the sources that impact that location could vary.
Hi, my name is Karen Flores. I'm with Friends of the LA River. Two things I wanted to make a comment on. As far as funding, we recognize that you may have high-speed rail funding. We recognize there may be a QMD funding available. I do want to just bring to the public's attention that if the AEG Farmers Field gets built, there are offset credits in that deal. Where they will go and what they will be, I do not think have been decided, but this would be a great project close to the area to apply that, and I'd like to see that be done as aggressively as possible. Secondly, you already have certain cars that have ad wraps promoting bicycles on the train. This is Hollywood. We are the home to all the studios. They are always looking for new ways to promote their movies, and I would like you to explore aggressively wrapping more cars for ad revenue to put toward any type of mitigation you can. The last things, I know I'm feeding back, that I want to just make sure everyone knows is that the LA River bike path in Glendale Narrows has been designated by the National Park Service as a national recreation trail. Traffic is going to increase. Secondly, in the works, not yet fully announced, is that next summer may be a pilot program, recreational zone in Glendale Narrows for boating, fishing, and equestrian. So this river is going to be revitalized. It will be open space for the community, for a parkour community. It's only going to get busier. So I want to make sure not only is it residents, schools, recreation areas, but this river is going to become the center of our city. So thank you.
Okay, so we know here that we want to simplify things, and there's a lot of community people here, and I'm hoping that we will be able to. So I'm going to ask some questions, and hopefully we can answer yes or no. Okay, and I'll go through. And they're in the packets that you received also, so then we might follow. So we're asking for immediately to conduct a health risk assessment for the nearby communities of Cypress Park and the Mission Valley, with special attention to the nearby schools and the recreational facilities. Is it possible? Yes or no?
No, I'll be honest with you. No, I'll be very honest with you. I can be honest. No, it's not possible to do that immediately because we don't do health risk assessment. It's not what we know how to do. It's not what we're trained to do. And I don't think it would have credibility if we did it anyhow. But what I talked to Assemblymember Cedillo about a couple hours ago was working together with the California Community Foundation and their health experts to see if there's something we can do in partnership with them, because that solves the problem of who's going to pay for it. It's also the problem, it's also their area of expertise, not ours. And the Assemblyman and I committed to exploring that. Actually, I think he committed, I'm sure, to exploring it, but we were gonna, as most things, but we're gonna start working on that immediately. Some women will, I will, and whoever else we need to get involved to see if they can help us out and do what you asked.
I just have a quick question because last time CEO John Fenton promised us 7 weeks they're going to install the electrical outlet. And I heard that you mentioned earlier you already installed outlets somewhere. How many outlets have you installed? And then another thing is your XEP engine is one of the dirtiest engine. I'm not talking about locomotive engine right here. The XEP engine is consumed. If you run under load, generate electricity like that in the yards, can consume up to, on the average, about 33 gallons per hour. So how soon can you install all the electrical in your yard and to turn off that engine completely? We don't want that engine to be on, and because that engine is one of the dirtiest engines right now. Because the locomotive, when it's idle, I know it's not that dirty. The only thing when you get under load, that's what I'm concerned about.
Well, as I previously mentioned, we're just in the design phase with our bench electrical engineer to look at the design for CMS. The initial engineers estimated between 1.2 and 1.5 million. Once the design is complete, we're ready to go to the board, and I can explain as to what this is going to take. And then in the interim, we're going to be searching funds to handle that. So to give you a definite, I'm going to do it by January, I'd be wrong. And I don't want to give you a wrong. All I can do is keep you updated as to when it'll happen. But right now, there's a 25% that we have installed, as Mr. Fenn committed to you in the yard. Do you have a number of how many actual outlets we installed?
Right now, we have 4 outlets in the S9 area, directly across from LA River. And we're looking at, I don't know if they can hear you in the back. And we're looking at installing an additional 13 outlets throughout the facility.
Now, I understand these are 480 with.
I'm sorry, you couldn't hear me the first time. Right now we have 4 locomotives, 4 HEP plug-in technology located in the S&I area across from your residence, okay? As Dennis mentioned, we're looking at installing in the future, hopefully, about 13 more outlets throughout the facility. So that'll take care of all the locations on the S&I, 4 more there, and also an additional 9 in the storage outlets.
Could you clarify again, it's a little hard to hear in here, the schedule of when the rest of the plugs will appear?
Well, as Mr. Marzak said, we've assembled the cost of installing the plug-in technology, okay? And the next step then is to go to the board and lay out the benefits to the board, and also, of course, the cost.
To me, 1.2 or 1.3 million dollars for install that outlet is not that expensive. Then you run your engine like every time the train come in, you run for hours on end, and every hour you consume 33 gallons of diesel fuel, and multiply that by over the time. I think the benefit is way more than the cost of diesel fuel.
Well, that's a good point. And as we talked about earlier, we monitor all the trains that enter the yard to ensure the locomotive engineers shut down the HEP engine between Union Station and entering the yard. And the HEP engines are started up, to inspection as per the regulation. And then we go ahead and shut them down after they're inspected, or the afternoon trains will plug them in. So 25% of the trains currently will plug in, 25% of the 32 trains.
But it's one of those things we'll have to keep you posted on, but I realize it may not seem like a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, but we do have to get authority to spend that type of money and find the resources in order to apply it. So we take the first steps with it, and all we need to do now is continue.
Well, just one more thing I'd like to add to mention the HEP engine. We're on the street right now with proposal to secure costs for Tier 4. And that's not only Tier 4 technology for the main engines, but that's also Tier 4 technology for the HEP engines. So that will also significantly reduce the pollutants by approximately 95%.
Okay, if we could keep the answers to 2 minutes, or we'll be here all night. Sorry. Okay, the second question is, immediate reduction in service yard hours with no overflow traffic. Limit servicing hours to 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday, no weekend service. Any overflow traffic into the facility must be serviced at alternative facilities such as the Eastern Maintenance Facility. Is this possible? Yes?
Well, perhaps at a later date. Our EMF facility is just starting in the beginning phases of construction for actual use. Sandbag is taken under construction. It's a San Bernardino government. They are starting a construction project. They're here probably within the next month or so, and they will begin to lengthen our tracks to help the facility be a full use facility. Today it's stuff tracks, it's a short yard, and it was designed to use for the equipping of the roller cars. That is reaching its end, and now we're going to build it longer with the San Bernardino's help, is to lengthen the yard, make it a full facility. But that won't be finished until first quarter or second quarter of 2013. And then the plan is to bring the equipment into that.
So the answer is no until 2013.
That is correct.
Okay, the next question is stronger enforcement of safety regulations for noisy, heavy exhaust periods, including reducing the idling time of each engine, service for no more than 20 minutes per day. Purchase and use non-polluting push carts for moving trains around the yard. And I hope that one is fixed because it was idle last time I was there. So is this a yes or no?
Yes, we are purchasing push cart. Yes, it'll be electric.
And what about the service no more than 20 minutes per day?
That's no.
Just so you know, on the service, we are.
Well, we're trying to go to yes and no. We're sort of in a hurry to finish these
If I
questions.
say yes, I would. The federal government regulates what we have to test. That's not our call. They tell you these are the tests you got to pass. So even if I can say yes, and they stop you from doing it, I'm not going to do that.
So what is the amount of minutes then that you would use?
Well, as we showed in the presentation, it's usually at least 45 to 60 minutes to do the servicing of the locomotive. There's nothing else wrong where we have to troubleshoot the locomotive. It's not a time clock type of issue.
So you're saying 45 to 60 minutes?
It's a minimum. It's good average time.
They need to be tested elsewhere. I don't like community.
Somebody else?
I don't mind.
Well, not in a community that's nestled between so many people and children in schools, and I mean, I don't think that's a good area, but. Yeah. Okay, we'll ask the next question. So we'll go to 5. Install exhaust and noise capture hood devices where engines are load tested. Example, having revving, engines that are idling during general maintenance, daily general maintenance. So we're talking about the noise capture hood devices.
I can't answer that yes or no. I'd say we're exploring it, as I explained earlier. It's a $30 million proposition to do the yard, and we're investigating and progressing with it.
Okay, so now it's no. Okay. The next question is implement a quiet zone for horns and valves. Work with the community to consider sound barriers.
We're certainly entertaining the sound barriers, but we have no jurisdiction to implement the quiet zones, other than the one we were taking care of at the private crossing.
Okay, so no. Okay, and I also would like, are we going to go to question and answer? Okay. I would ask also as board members, Dennis Warzak, that, and I believe it's in here in the letter, that it says, I commit to present a motion to the MetroLink Board of Directors to immediately fund a health risk assessment for the communities of Cypress Park and Elysian Valley with special emphasis attention to the 9 nearby schools and all recreational facilities.
I think I already answered that.
Well, I'm asking Dennis. This
Dennis
is
is
you.
not a board member. Dennis is director, is that correct?
Okay.
Dennis is our director of operations, he's not a board member.
Are you a board member?
I'm the chairman of the board.
Okay, so then, is that a yes or no?
Is what a yes or no?
What I just, you want me to read it again? Read it again, I'm sorry. I commit to present a motion to the MetroLink Board of Directors to immediately fund a health risk assessment for the communities of Cypress Park and Elysian Valley, with special emphasis and attention to the 9 nearby schools and the recreation facilities.
As I told you a little while ago, that I'm going to work with Assemblyman Cedillo to see if the California Community Foundation will fund, because by the way, MetroLink just raised its fares because we don't have money we sit on. We didn't raise fares because we wanted to, we raised fares because we had to. So we don't have money sitting around.
We're asking you to take this back to your board.
I understand, I will take the issue back to the board. I am not going to ask the board to immediately fund it because they don't have the money to fund it. But I will bring the issue to the board, we'll discuss it at the meeting tomorrow.
So you will take it back to your board?
Yeah.
That's in addition, would you amend that motion to seek funds?
No.
So you won't do
I will bring, I'm not going to make the motion, I'm going to take the issue to the board, I'll discuss the funding with the board, I'll discuss all the issues with the board, and the board will make a decision on how they want to proceed. But I can't make a commitment for the board. I'm not going to do that. I don't have the power to do it, and they'd all lynch me if I did.
Okay, so you won't. You'll take it to the board, but you won't make the motion and vote on it. Okay. One more. And this is for you. I commit to introduce and vote for a motion to the MetroLink Board of Directors to immediately fund, that's the same thing, I'm sorry. They were both same thing. We had it for both of you, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this has been going on for quite some time now in terms of trying to get to these questions and to get some resolution on this. As we started the meeting, and as people talked to this, Grove also mentioned, and all the people in the community, they've applauded some of the work that's been done by MetroLink and recognized some of the changes that have happened. The main issue that they've had is also, and we discussed this today, of the hybrid, the resolution. I understand that you spoke with the assembly member earlier today, and I just found out about that right now. But in terms of what the commitments were, what my thing is that we need to be able to move forward. So would you be willing to have a meeting with the rest of the group here in order to discuss some of these health risks? Would you do that?
Yep, we'd be happy to.
Okay. So we'd have a meeting with the rest of the folks.
What I was going to ask is, we would be happy to continue to meet. We'd be happy if you have a working group, you want to sit down with us and we'll walk through what our plans are. We'll get some ideas and other things we got. We will be totally transparent with the community groups about what we're trying to do, what our, what assets we have, what liabilities, and how to get it done. We're happy to do that.
All right, moving forward, we'll continue to do that. We do have questions. People from the audience, people have submitted some. We have a microphone that's running around here. Yes. The first question is from Gloria Mora.
Okay, I know the bullet's going to be going through our neighborhood, and I want to know why hasn't there been any preparation for building walls? Because you think it's loud now. I know it's going to be louder when you guys go through there. And I've been in the neighborhood for 52 years. I've had 3 people die of cancer in my neighborhood. Now something is wrong, and I want to know why these barriers haven't been built. Between Riverside Drive, between the river and you guys, like walls to prevent the noise from going down. And I would like to know if I could get an environment impact report also.
First of all, I'm sorry for your losses. And
My dad used to work for the railroad track. He died of lung cancer.
no, as I said, my dad died of throat cancer. I'm sorry. I know
That was 3 years ago.
it's not pretty. We will continue to work. When you said bullet, you meant the high-speed rail?
Correct.
Yeah, we're not building high-speed rail. High-speed rail authority is. We will get some money from it, but if high-speed rail comes through the community, we're going to insist that there be grade separations so that high-speed rail is not at grade and it's elevated so that you don't have long backups from trains screaming through the neighborhood, and I know their designs call for sound walls and barriers when they build that. I'd be surprised if we see any of that building within the next 10 years down here. But I know their plans call for building sound barriers as part of that when the train comes.
Well, they say they're gonna start next year.
In Fresno.
Okay, do we have?
Fresno, I can't.
And what about this environmental?
Hold on, we're going to go with other questions. That's the question you have is on walls. We have another question from David De La Torre.
Thank you. You hear me? I don't know what language to put this to the board and to MetroLink, but it is evident from the get-go that this communities want a health risk assessment. I'm offended when I hear that's not what we do. We understand that's not what you do, but there are people who do so, but you need to pay for it. The Port of Los Angeles did so. You guys need to engage that. Walk away from this meeting knowing that this community wants a health risk assessment. I want the liberty to know how dangerous your operation is to my family and to have an educated decision to stay in this community or to fight to move you from this community. Do you guys want a health risk assessment, yes or no? Please commit to one if what you are speaking to us here today is sincere. Otherwise, you're just passively giving us, cake and milk.
Next question, Alex Vender. Alex, is he here? Left? He left, so I'll read his question real quick. It's just making a statement. Today at approximately 4 p.m. I witnessed a piece of load tests at the north end of the train repair structure. When will these tests stop? Stop being done less than 100 yards from my home. They pollute both the air and make an unacceptable level of noise. That's the question. Sure.
Well, right now, we don't have an alternate facility. When we have outlying facilities that we do test locomotives at, and we do, but this is our main service facility at this time. It's not an everyday occurrence. So, we're going to work for possibly the hood technology, but to move that right now, there's no possibility.
Next question is Joyce. Joyce Dillard? Is she here? No? Joyce, are you here? Check leave. All right, they leave these questions. If they don't answer them, I have to read them. Here we go. Joyce Dillard, who's from Lincoln Heights. Midway Yard has never had a CEQA assessment as a permanent maintenance facility. Consequently, the environmental impacts have not been analyzed. Back in the 1990s, there was an interim facility for the Burbank-Los Angeles Rail and continues to be an interim solution for the Gold Line Phase 2 EIR. It is a permanent facility for MetroLink. So when will an EIR be prepared as required by California law?
We're talking about our CMF facilities. You mentioned the Midway facility.
She's saying...
I think it's a mission area where UP Railroad has the main and Main Street. Main Street.
By Mission? County Hospital?
Oh, it's Metro, it's not Metro. Okay.
Yeah, I can't clarify because Joyce is not here and she does the research on this. Dr. Williams, you say the question, she's...
Specifically to storage of operating trains, how about the 4 tracks, the storage tracks between the LA River and the Piper Technical Center, just south of Chavez Bridge, north of 101? What is the purpose of those 4 storage tracks? Because we've seen a lot of MetroLink trains stored on them. Why can't those tracks be used even more?
Yeah, those are actually, that yard is Keller Yard, that was built as a reserve yard, and what we do there is we're building the PTC, refurbishing the PTC equipment at that yard, plus we are storing equipment at the yard.
Yeah.
But that is our main location now for, we've got our locomotives in there for PTC.
Okay.
Okay, we have only about 3 other questions that were put up here. There was one from Mr. Herman, he's not here. If I don't know if he said he was in Livonia. Conduct a science or scientific health and safety investigation from impact to life, independent outsource. Not a good question, another statement. Susan, you're here. You have a question?
I live just a few blocks away in Cypress Park up the street, and I hear the train horns all night. And I know MetroLink shuts down at a certain time. What time do they shut down? And why isn't Union Pacific here?
Well, the Union Pacific obviously doesn't have our facility anymore, and this was really dedicated to the CMF facility. So, we as the current inhabitants of CMF are here for that. As far as the quiet zone and the UP does run all night. Matter of fact, they run the preponderance of their trains during the evening hours because we're not out there. We shut down, our last train comes by there about 9:30 or so.
Wow, because it's way after 9:30, even in the middle of the night.
UP runs, there's 12 Amtrak trains through the day that come through the facility, just passing through. There's 12 also UP. The UPs run at night. The Amtrak doesn't, and we don't. So you'd have to talk to UP about bells and whistles and shutting down. We have no authority or control over what UP does.
Well, I'm asking you if you can bring UP to the next meeting or connect our community with them, because I've asked them several times to come.
I'd be happy, if you guys want UP here, we'll make a request.
That'd be
Happy
great.
to make a request.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have one more question, and that's from Alexia.
Yes. Yes, you mentioned that you don't have the funding for the risk assessment. I understand that. So the endowment does do that. Have you been able to start that conversation, or how long will it be before you're able to start the conversation?
The endowment was the Assemblyman's suggestion this afternoon. I would expect that he and I will talk tomorrow and huddle with Arturo and staff from the MTA, from MetroLink, and we'll see about approaching them as soon as possible.
Thank you. And also, over the time that we've been here, I've lived here for 45 years, and I live here in Cypress Park, so I know the area pretty well. And when I was here, when I was a kid, there weren't as many people. We all know that. The population grows. So I understand the schools are not, as close as you want them to be, but still they worry us. But there is one school that's pretty close, which is Divine Savior. And there's the recreation center. And also here at this River Center, there are kids who come here and volunteer. So all the kids, all the people are important to us. And I'm glad that somebody has been thinking about the endowment, because they can, they do, and they might. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll do one more. Karen? Hold on, let me look at my clock here.
Thank you. It's Karen Flores again with Friends of the LA River. One more thing I want to share again openly with everyone is that Parcel C on San Fernando Road is slated for more residential development. And from the latest plans of 2011 that I have seen, some of it is for senior housing and family housing. So we're looking at more children and elderly potentially moving immediately adjacent. The next thing I just want to say is that it is very hard to get to know all of these entities and how they operate. The average person doesn't go on your facilities or go to your meetings. So if some of these people may seem like they don't quite understand or their questions may not be pertinent, don't underestimate their will. Maybe they don't have the knowledge or the education to be able to understand and navigate, but they have will, and sometimes that will make up the difference.
I know you didn't mean to be offensive to the community, but I do think they have the intelligence, and
I don't even
excuse me,
understand some of
can I
it.
finish?
But talk about yourself now.
All I'm saying is, I believe will is incredibly important, and will is what moves mountains and changes governments. We've seen that. Will is incredibly important, but I also think a lot of people here understand, and we will do our best to endeavor to answer every question so people understand, because we believe that if people understand what we're up against, just like we understand what the community's up against, we'll all come up with a better solution for it.
Okay, we're almost done to this meeting. We're gonna go for one more thing. That's, we have Ceci to come up with a couple of things, and then we'll conclude.
And I just want to ask you, now that we have you here and have asked some questions, we would like to follow up and get together as a group. And I'm thinking, is 2 weeks possible for us to arrange with the working group to come meet with you, or you meet with us?
Yeah, we'll work it out. We're happy to meet. We can meet our shop, your shop, here, wherever's
And our
convenient.
community is great, our community is great.
Well, that's fine. We're happy to be in the community. So.
Yeah, thank you. And Karen, thank you for saying that. This information is very difficult. I'm a grandmother and a mother. I didn't even know how to say diesel particulate matter. But what's really important is I knew the health in our community. And I want to continue to make sure our community is safe. And so if it makes us realize we have to find out what this information is, that's where our will will come. And our community members, we have a lot of intelligent people in our community, and thank you for your help. Thank you to all the community people who are here. We appreciate your time. It's very, very hard. Yes, we will have one in 2 weeks. We will set one, but thank you again.
Can I thank you and the Assemblyman and his staff and all the community members for all the questions that were raised.
Thank you.
Very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
We appreciate the opportunity to share what we do and to address your concerns, because there are concerns also. I wanted to, just as an indication of how seriously our board takes this, Mike Hennessy, who's sitting against the wall over there, is from the Orange County Transportation Authority. He's their representative on the MetroLink board. He drove up here tonight, or took the train up in order to come to this meeting. So, and he's from Orange County. So we take it seriously. Mike, I appreciate you being here, but we take the health of the community very seriously also.
Well, we thank you for that, and please remember us in the Elysian Valley and Cypress Park.
And with that, what I want to do is just conclude this meeting with one thing. We will meet again. We will coordinate with MetroLink, and we really want to thank that at least the board members have come, with Richard Katz coming. More importantly than anything else, and I keep on telling people this has been a community-driven issue. This has been a community organizing issue. This has been something that has been brought by the Elysian Valley, Cypress Park. It's one of the issues that I will tell you has brought people together from both sides of the river. We are now speaking with people from Elysian Valley, Echo Park, Cypress Park, people that never even talked to each other before. Australians coming in too, I know, Dr. Williams. But all the folks in the Northeast joining together, and that's made a difference. And we have made a difference through a continued dialogue, and I want to thank you all, because the dialogue that has occurred at these meetings has been very, very good, very disciplined, and allows for people to come back to have this discussion, even though we have to sometimes look up what the use of particulate matter is, and what EHP, and all these other things that we're talking about. It becomes a little bit difficult, but I want to thank you for sitting through the meeting. I want to thank you for coming and being a part and involved and engaging in this. We will have another meeting with everyone here. Thank you again so much for coming tonight. We really want you to come next time. We'll keep you informed. Thank you and good night.